Welcome back to the Brothers Mahoney. This is Michael,
And I am James.
and today we are discussing episode 3 of The War Between the Land and the Sea, titled simply The Deep. This was written by Pete McTighe and aired initially December 14th, 2025. Much like episodes 1 and 2, this is released back to back with episode 4, which we have not watched yet. And of course, they're released in the UK. They're not available legally in the US yet, but luckily the internet knows no borders. So, hashtag the high seas. And this one just follows up from the previous episode. At sea, Barclay and a team of delegates prepare to meet Aquakind deep under the ocean. Meanwhile, on the land, a conspiracy begins to take shape. And I feel like it technically began last episode, but they get a little more action thrown into this one.
Indeed, they did, and it's as basically expected, but so terrible to see because it feels very realistic to actual life.
And as for the characters, so generally carried on from the previous episodes, we have Barclay, played by Russell Tovey. We get brief appearances as both his ex-wife and child, being Barbara and Colby, played respectively by Anne Akinjern and Kat Gannon. Salt appears, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, and it takes them about half the episode to appear, but they pop up. They have some good scenes.
They only get one, maybe two scenes, depending on how you want to slice it, of prominence, but we have also Keith Spears, played by Patrick Bellardi, Daniel Dominique Dusselair, played by Barbara Probst, Daniel Asko Gansborg, played by Stuart Alexander, and considering the circumstances we see in the episode, we might as well add to the conspiracy Prime Minister Harry Saar, played by Vincent Franklin, who actually reminds me a bit of a character from a Stephen King book, but we'll discuss that very briefly later on in the episode.
Yeah, we also get the normal suspects from the unit, being Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, played by Jemma Redgrave, Christopher Abraham, played by Alexandria Deviant, and technically Shirley Bingham, played by Ruth Madeldy. I have to admit they don't do much, but they are here. And going down with Barclay are 5 other characters, 2 of which are particularly important, but 3 of them which are worth mentioning, being General Austin Pierce, played by Colin McFarlane. We have a Todd Campbell, played by William Gamonera, who actually apparently appeared in the previous episode, in episode 2. I'm not sure where. He's probably just one of the many people in the room during one of the speech scenes. So here's this somewhere. Then we have Ravi Singh, played by Manpreet Bachu. And he's not, at least so far, he's not like a particularly important character, but one, he added some of the human element. 2, apparently the actor also appeared back in The Bars of St. John, which is an episode that I myself have really only seen once, and I think, I don't know how many times James has seen it, but probably not many.
I think it's only been 2 myself. Maybe 3, but I can't promise that.
Yeah, so I have no idea how important that character was, or the actor was in that episode. May have been just a small scene, I really don't know, but I thought it was worth mentioning anyway, because he looks somewhat young here, so I have to imagine he was quite young. Like, what, that would have been like at least 10, 15 years ago-ish, something like that. Sort of
I mean,
curious.
I guess we didn't look at his age. Maybe he would have been, I don't know, an 18-year college student getting sucked into a phone, because I remember that much. Sucked into the Wi-Fi, as it were.
Yeah, that is, I guess that's what we can aspire to. And this episode is a very, how would I want to phrase it? You wrote introspective, I think it makes sense. Because after the last one, which was sort of packed with a bunch of things, this one sort of takes its time a bit more. We have what I would say are like 3 main points. We start off with just the pressure on Barclay and the team as they walk toward and begin this descent. They have to go through some training at some, I think it was called Blackport, which is some like, I don't know, military marine training base type thing. It looked nice. It had a nice old-fashioned fortressy look to it. Beforehand, you had a, I think, decently emotional scene showing, I guess, the pressure that Barclay is under. He sort of has a emotional moment with his ex-wife and Colby, where he's trying to be strong, and he sort of has a small breakdown, just like this. It's just hard for me. This is something he does often, and he has such pressure on his shoulders, and he shows a moment of vulnerability, and it goes to like a nice little hug between our three of them. I think it's a really nice moment. Shows some humanity. and just I guess shows the pressure that at least this one family is under in this moment.
I like that as well. I mean, in some ways, it seems like Colby and Barbara haven't had as much to do, but I suppose that's probably always going to be the case just because it's a 5 episode miniseries and they're not technically the main characters. So, but it was nice to see Barclay open up a bit about how much he has to deal with. I didn't quite understand the point Colby was making. One, multiple characters are talking about how we're at war and like they're not at war. Now, I get perhaps with the way that media works, and we discussed media a lot last episode. Maybe everybody thinks they are at war, but
Yeah, like the common perception of the average person might just assume, hey, they dropped a bunch of plastic on us. It's war, bro.
the media will do absolutely nothing to dissuade that view. In fact, more likely than not, the media will try to make people think that was the case. And I suppose you could argue that if they have a truce going on, an armistice truce, an armistice can only happen if one is at war or in some type of conflict. So I suppose there's that. But either way, the tweets are not even tweets anymore. What did they mention? TikTok, I guess?
Yeah, I
They
think it
say,
was. I think it was TikTok.
saying that Barclay was a bootlicker. I need to understand the context for any of the things Corby was saying because I
Or
wasn't really
probably
following.
trade. I think Trader was another one. I mean, another one you could make sounds like, hey, he's working with these
He's
Aquakind
he's a
supposed to humanity.
he's a delegate for the human race. That's what
I
delegations
do believe.
do.
I do believe it's being called a trader, bro.
Okay, whatever. People are stupid.
He's doing a lot more than delegating, but we'll talk about that.
Not yet, he hasn't.
Indeed.
But either way, it was a nice scene between them before he goes down to the deep, but perhaps he will never be seen again. I did think it was very unfair of the Homo Aqua, or in this episode called the Aquakind, which is a much easier, more flowing off the tongue way to phrase it.
I think the last episode I was calling him Homo Aquas, and it just felt aqua to me. So Aquakind is now going to be my go-to.
Now just call them sea devils. But it was a bit unfair for them to say, hey, you have to come to this point in the trance, and yet you have to make it there yourself. Hypothetically, you'd think they'll be able to themselves have gotten them
Yeah, like
from the.
facilitate that with the technology they have. I guess the way I see it is that you give a little, you get a little. Going down there in human-made transportation shows it's like a little show of trust, it's a little show of faith. Like, hey, we'll get halfway there, like meet halfway in a way. Obviously, humans have the technology to do it. Maybe they haven't used it before in this form, but they got there and it seemed to work pretty well.
Yeah, I do wonder how much time lapsed between the end of last episode and this one, because I have to imagine it would take a bit to get everything arranged.
Yeah, I forget how much time they said they had to train. Like, what, 3 or 4 days or something like that?
I don't remember them saying it. I just remember one of them saying this is training that people usually do for over months. And that's true if you look into like astronaut training, which I think they specifically reference. That training, that training might even take years, or at least a very long time. But they did not have that type of scale of time to work with this time around. But hey, they got it done and they got down, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah, and like I said, there's 6 people total. Naturally, ball players among them, and I'm sort of surprised that Austin Pierce went with them. But I think it's honestly he seems like a good face to have down there. Then we don't really know a ton. At least I could get a ton from Todd Campbell. He seems like one of those almost like a inspiration speech giving type guy. Talking about like teamwork, and he just seems sort of iffy from the beginning.
To me, he was the most untrustworthy person without question from the start. Just because he's all friendly and he's nice and he's seemingly not nervous. That breaks down very slowly after they start descending. But for whatever it's worth, and they lampposted this pretty hard. He wasn't to be trusted, and we see what happens at the end.
Yeah, and I think the episode does a really good job, especially toward the first half, just showing the tension as these 6 people are thrown into a submergible device. I'm not entirely sure what those are called. I just know that hey, if they were billionaires, I would have been okay with them dying, but wasn't to be. But they are thrown into a submergible device, and this is obviously a lot of pressure as they are slowly descending into the ocean, into, as the title says, the deep. And like James said, Todd Campbell has a small little breakdown. He thinks he feels liquid on the shore that's just condensation, and he's freaking out about it. And I think, again, this really shows some strength from Barclay. He's able to calm him down, talk to him, sort of have an actual moment with him, and you see a lot of small character moments like that. Like even with some of the characters who may not matter as much, who we didn't even name on an individual basis. There's two women, one's like a scientific. I think, in fact, she's the one who initially gave them. She was in the first episode with the initial dead body of the original Sea Devil, and the other woman's talking about, oh hey, if she gets out of this, she's going to go talk to her brother, who she has to talking to in, I forget, it's like 15, 20 years, something like that. So you get a little small human moments like that from all of these characters as they're just trying to deal with the pressure and wondering what's going to happen as they descend deeper and deeper, not fully knowing what to expect once they reach the destination.
Yeah, and in others, so they would have spent maybe even longer on it, maybe even a whole episode, depending on how much time they had to play with. But with only 5 episodes, that was never going to happen this time around. And they, of course, also interspersed scenes of that nature with scenes on the surface level, seeing what Kate had to deal with. And on the surface, what Kate's dealing with is an emergency meeting between, it seemed like government officials mostly. You'd think this would have more worldwide implications, but whatevs. I suppose there was also the French woman, Janio Dominique Dusselair, and the American Janio Oscar Gansberg. So I suppose you could argue they're representatives of both France and the United States. But either way, they were holding an emergency meeting, which they started a bit early before Kate was able to get there, which annoyed Kate a bit. And to be fair, that's quite reasonable, considering UNIT is supposedly supposed to have a say in these diplomatic meetings. But they're not talking about diplomacy here. They're just out and out planning a war. I'll point out one of the people at this meeting with the Prime Minister is also Sir Keith Spears, who isn't even a government official, but because he's a representative of industry and as the Prime Minister says, they need industry on their side, he is apparently allowed in the room. I'll point out he's also a huge donor to the Prime Minister. So you would think that would be a huge conflict of interest. And Kate herself points out that not only is he not a government official and has no right to be in this room, the France general was caught leaking classified information. So neither of them have any right to be included in any meeting of this sort, and yet somehow they're all allowed here and they get to plan their own war against the Aquakind because they feel like they have the economic reasons to do so. Because, oh my golly, Sir Keith Spears might lose his third Manson. And I didn't phrase it that way, but I have no sympathy for any of the humans in this perspective about, oh, American industry depends on trade over oceans. Just change how the industry works. We're not going to get into a long discussion about this because I'm quite interested in seeing the next episode. But I have no sympathy with any of these plotters for the war to happen. And they're talking about using some sonic weaponry. There was somebody in the room who was actually on Kate's side, and I quite appreciated her. And it seems that was probably Preya Lakhani, who is played by Sita Indrani.
Yeah,
And they,
I don't think it gave what position she had, but I would have been curious about that.
I would be curious as well. Probably something like HUD or something in American terms. But either way, she had a great line because they were just going on about the war they were planning. Kate was saying this is supposed to be diplomatic. They were saying no, it's going to be a war one way or the other. We might as well start it. And one of the lines, because Kate was exasperated with them because they really weren't getting it because they have their own agenda. And the woman says, "This is what the West does best: colonize and plunder." And hey, I don't know how she got the government position, but she's not wrong. That is what the West does best, and I said an episode ago that's pretty representative that the plotters here are from the United States, France, and the UK, because those are the biggest problems in the world right now in terms of world peace. So the
I
show
would say
is,
I would say Israel is also a big problem.
yeah, but Israel is only a problem because of the United States. But either way, I think the show's hitting that pretty right on the heart, what's going on there. And it's nice to see Kate and the other woman again. I don't remember ever saying her name in the episode, but apparently her name is Preya Lakhani. So nice to see there's one based person in the room, at least. And as I mentioned in the character introductions for this episode, I have to say the Prime Minister here reminds me a little bit of a character from a Stephen King book, Under the Dome, which was a Stephen King book which was made into a terror TV series. I watched 3 episodes maybe, then I just stopped and it went on for 3 seasons. So I swear to God, do not watch that. But the book is from 2009. I quite recommend it. It's actually a pretty good, quote unquote, recent Stephen King book, and I know it's over 10 years old. I'm sure calling it recent. But the Prime Minister had a wife apparently who was sick, or someone who was sick. Maybe it was his sister, but I got the impression it was a wife. And he was talking about how he should be here. And the rich businessman, Keith Spears, is saying, oh, you have your own stuff to worry about. Let us take care of things on the military side. And there's a character in Under the Dome, the first selectman of the town in the book, and Andy Sanders, who his wife died during, and I'm not going to get into the details, just read the book, but his wife died during an incident near the very beginning of the book. And even though he's the town's first selectman, the town is basically being run by the second selectman. But the second selectman has the coverage of being the second selectman, so he's kind of able to hide behind the scenes, and things are just rubber stamped by the first selectman. And because his wife died, he's already depressed. He basically hands power over to the other guy. So I don't know. He reminded me a little bit of the character, especially when it came to the dad-wife thing. So small little Stephen King reference. Stephen King himself is a terrible person, most likely, but his books are still good. So be that as it may.
Yeah, and it's during that meeting, which I think it's appropriate to dab at some type of deep state conspiracy. There's a reference thrown around to sovereignty, which is some type of secret plan amongst these people that Kate and Unit doesn't know about. To be honest, I sort of thought the Prime Minister, in fact, the Prime Minister didn't know about it, and I think he was told maybe toward the end of that meeting. And we found out the details potentially later. But you get the sense that of the 6 people who descended toward the deep, maybe one of them is not the best or most faithful actor. There was earlier in the episode a scene in which Todd Campbell was showing a globe. He's going to give a gift to the sea divers or the Aquakind. He's going to give them a gift of the globe, showing them the Earth from a perspective they may not always be privy to. Which the sentiment's nice, but that globe may not be quite what it appears.
No, and I can't believe that nobody on the military side double checked every single thing that went down into the submarine-like thing. And it's not a submarine, but I'll just say that.
I mean, submersible is probably the best that we can call it.
Yeah, so either way, I'm surprised that not everything they brought wasn't checked and double checked and triple checked because of how dangerous the operation was. But I suppose you could argue that maybe he was allowed on this meeting in the first place, so they trusted him and he had privileges to bring something that looked like just a gift. But you would still think there would have been some type of way to check it.
Unless it just passed the vibe check, like, oh, it's a globe, okay, cool. Maybe they just didn't do any type of deep scan. But when they finally reach the location, it's sort of like a membrane type organism in a way. It's not like you or I. It's not a building. It's not concrete and stone. It's something else. It's a very interesting structure that can keep the water out, allow the humans to actually take the diving masks off, and they can actually breathe despite being, I think it was 5 miles beneath the sea level.
I go 5 miles beneath the sea level every day.
Well, if you have one of these to go to, it might be okay. It looks nice. I think the special effects are pretty good. And we finally see it takes her a bit to pop up, but Salt finally pops up. And they just have again, quiet moment, the 6 of them, with Ravi Singh, again, somewhat freaking out a little bit. Just needs to take a couple deep breaths, he's okay. And they're just slowly walking down these highways. There's a bunch of Aquakind on either side of watching them, just sort of curious. I have to imagine, and I think Salt even said that these are the first humans to ever be this deep. So it's a new experience for them. And there's a moment in which Salt and Barclay sort of separate off from the rest of the group, and they have a moment to themselves. And I'm not sure what you would qualify this moment as, but I'll just say I got romantic vibes. And there was a scene in which Salt was briefly touching Barclay's cheek, saying, "Oh, hey, you feel so warm," and Barclay asked for permission because he's a hashtag consent guy, saying, "Hey, could I touch you briefly?" And he does, and it's, I don't know, it's sort of a nice moment, nice quiet moment in a more introspective episode. And who's to say what happens past that point? It seems like Salt is interested in Barclay. I think Barclay says, like, I feel like I've known you for years or something to that effect. So actually, I will say we didn't watch this with subtitles. I wouldn't mind watching that scene again just to, I guess, get a clearer picture. But I do think it's a really nice scene.
Yeah, as long as a later episode doesn't reveal that, oh, he was brainwashed by the goldfish he mentioned to Kate, or something to that nature, which I don't think is likely, but who knows? There's 2 episodes left. It was a quite nice scene as well. I liked it. Of course, he in the end did get cock blocked by the rest of the group catching up, but either way, it was still a nice moment to share.
Yeah,
And
and they,
perhaps it's a nice moment they have together. Who knows? Maybe they both died. There's no way, but
yeah, well, you never know. Like James said, it's possible that none of these people are going to be able to make it back to the surface. Something goes wrong, they're pretty much screwed, and something may go wrong. South then takes out 6 of them to look upon her domain. And it's actually a scene, it sort of reminds me a little bit of, this might be an odd comparison, but in The Matrix, the classic sci-fi movie, I say classic, it came out like 99, but the humans have like this underground, I forget what they call it, Providence, some type of, I feel like it's some type of biblical name. It's not coming to me right now. But this base, you see all these Aquakind soldiers standing on various platforms, and it looks nice. They're showing off the civilization that they have, and that is when things, what's a British term, they go pear-shaped.
yeah, which has always been a strange tone. But the guy who we didn't trust from the beginning proves that he is not to be trusted. What a surprise.
Yeah, he gives over the globe as a gift to Salt. Then it starts glowing, and well, Barclay, well, let's just say Barclay's mama did the raising of fool. Barclay sort of tips it off, and what we see is it looks like it's some type of sonic bomb type thing. We can imagine they mentioned sonic weaponry earlier, so I imagine some type of sonic. I imagine it's probably going to disrupt the membrane, and well, we don't know this. This is just conjecture on my end, but I imagine it's going to flat out the area. It's just going to really harm the Aquakind much. However, what I think the humans are sort of screwed. The fact that on the side note, Campbell was sent down on like a suicide mission. He had to know that's what this was. If I'm right, I mean, I'm not sure what. I guess if it's a sonic weapon, maybe it's just supposed to discombobulate the aqua kind. But I just don't see how Campbell could seriously expect to survive this.
I mean, so, but I'll point out one, he's the only one to keep his helmet on after it being proven that the environment they were in was breathable oxygen for humans, which
That's
was
actually a
apparently.
good point, which I actually didn't think about. But that makes sense. So assuming the sonic, if it is a sonic weapon, assuming it's not harmful to them, he's actually prepared. But he's still like 5 miles deep. I feel like he's still get killed by the pressurization. But
Yeah, I'm not saying there's going to be any easy escape. I'm just saying he has an out. I'll also point out, I think this is supposed to do a little more than this discombobulation, considering when he handed it over, he said something to the fact of, your war is over, or this war ends now. Something to that nature. So, it's not going to just knock them over for a bit until they stand up again. I think it's supposed to be a little more drastic than that.
yeah, and we'll see how it works. And things are not just afoot down under the sea, but up at land. Kate has been getting very little sleep. I think she said like what, is it 6 hours in the last 3 or 4 days or something like that.
I thought it was 3 hours in the last 3 days,
It
but
was a very
either,
mini.
yeah, either way, it wasn't gold. Not advisable.
Yeah, Abraham is trying to say, hey, you need to go home and get some sleep because they lost contact with the 6 people when they reached, I guess, the sort of membrane thing. I actually can't tell if that was intentional, if they lost contact because of some ploy related to the sovereignty, if they lost contact because they entered the membrane thing. I'm not sure which it is, to be honest with you. It could be possible it's just part of the conspiracy plot on land, so there's no communication, but no idea. Point being, Abraham suggests that hey, Kate needs to go home, get some sleep, just so when they reach contact again, she can be at her best and they can deal with the situation. So there's a moment when she and Abraham are back at her apartment. Abraham is, I feel like now's not the time, but Abraham's sort of like, oh hey, I would like us not to have a secret relationship. I just wonder when and if we can be open about our relationship. Kate, of course, has bigger concerns in her mind. Like I said, I don't really think now is the time. But hey, maybe now it's just go to time as anyway, because Severance deals maybe not just with the assassination attempt of Salt and potentially some of Aquakind, but also the assassination attempt on Kate, because toward the end we see a sniper, I don't know, one of those rad dot things. I'm not a gun guy. Laser pointer thingy. And yeah, Kate almost gets shot, but luckily Abraham is there, knocks her out of the way. Looks like he takes the bullet. Looks honestly, it doesn't look good for him. I can't tell if he dies, but he does not look good at the end of the episode.
It doesn't look good for him, but I must say, when it saw the shot of the bullet in his chest, the bullet didn't really look that deep. And you'd think with an actual sniper weapon, it would have actually maybe not gone through, because I know you can't actually predict that completely, but I think it would have gone deeper than that. Again, it truly didn't look that deep. I'm not sure if I have a picture up just because, blood, whatnot, but
Oh, it's fake blood. It's okay. But James Mason made a good point that I don't know why Kate and her apartment would have like bulletproof glass. But it's one of the things that maybe we don't know. I imagine this would be a part of the next episode. Maybe the bullet was like a sparser bullet. Maybe it's just a div. Maybe it's just a different type of projectile that could go through that type of glass. Who's to say? We don't know yet. But yeah, so Abraham looks like he gets shot, and it looks like at the end of the episode, now the laser pointing on Kate's head, and she no, I do not think Kate's going to die. However, Abraham's down right now, and it looks like they're taking another shot at Kate. And then we see going under the sea the bomb type thing going off on both ends of the land and the sea. Things are not going right.
yeah, it's a pretty explosive ending to an episode that up until then had been more about character moments than anything like a spectacle. It is almost certainly what's going to happen, because at the time that Kate is sad, she is actually on the phone with Sorley, because Sorley's pointing out to her, hey, we ran a scan, and I don't know why the hell they didn't do this before they sent people down instead of just now, but they were running a scan on these 6 people they sent down, and oh, this word reference is popping up 14 times in the last 48 hours, hitting in these messages back and forth. And that's right when Kate is about to be sad, and then when Abraham takes the bullet. So I'm sure they're going to go into more detail next episode. I'm sure there'll be people from Unit. They'll almost immediately just stop Kate from getting taken. But either way, Kate might need to go underground, like something from the Winter Soldier, perhaps. But either way, things are heating up.
And I will say, if Abraham dies, he doesn't need to worry about the secret relationship anymore. So it's some pressure off his shoulders.
I suppose it is, although I will say this is a scene where I actually liked Abraham. I haven't really liked Abraham in most other scenes. I'm not saying he was right and that the relationship was more important. I'm not saying that's what he was saying. I agree with Michael. Now it is at the time, but I did hate him in this scene,
I
and I don't know. I kind of enjoyed him a bit here, and of course it's the scene where he is almost certainly going to be dead. But either way, it worked. At least he got one good scene before his death.
Well, I've never hated Abraham. It's just he's never had much of a character. I've just been indifferent to him since he first appeared, to be honest. And he finally gets a few moments here, which I have to imagine some people would care for just because they don't like the whole Kate Abraham relationship, which is fine. I'm not wild about it myself, but at least he has a few human moments here, and I guess we'll see what happens next episode. But yeah, I really like the finale here. We saw it slowly leading up to an explosive finale, and after sort of a quiet episode, it was nice to see. And I have to imagine this upcoming episode, which is I think what's the Witch of the Waterfall. So I'm expecting a nice, more actiony, quick-paced episode for that one, which actually would mirror the first 2 episodes. First episode, Homo Aqua was a bit slower, more build-up. I don't think it was anywhere near as interesting as this one was. And then Plastic Apocalypse was more of a quicker paced type episode. So after this more slow build episode, I expect the next one to be more along the lines of Plastic Apocalypse. So I'm sort of pumped. And I actually felt this episode was quite good. I think the quiet moments worked really well. They did really well with the human moments. And to be honest, personally speaking, no, this all depends on where this story goes. Personally speaking, I don't have any complaints.
No, I like the episode a lot myself. I'm not going to say it's better than the last one. I am interested to see how Kate deals with this situation. So I'm sure that's going to be fun. I'm not saying she's going to be able to deal with it automatically, but
It would be
nonetheless,
cool if Kate shot the Prime Minister and became Prime Minister herself.
well, I don't know about that. But yeah,
That's how the transfer of power works now.
I mean, it's probably better than democracy. So
Oh, snap.
joking, hashtag not joking. But either way, I thought the episode was nice. I'm not going to say it was better than episode 2, but I thought it was a good episode.
Well, they're also going for very different things, too. I actually would say this is up there with episode 2 because going with the vibe they're going for, this had a lot more quiet human moments in episode 2. Both episodes are really good, so it doesn't really matter. It's not like it's a competition, but I do think it's a really quality episode, and I wish a lot more modern Who had been more like this episode as opposed to like what they have been in the past. So I guess in that it's a shining light. Maybe in the future we can get more things like this. it all depends on how much of this is going to be important past this series.
Yeah, the end, that really is what matters. But I guess we'll see in the next couple of episodes. We'll be watching one more episode right after recording this, and then one more week, and then the series is over. So that was a very quick event.
Hey, unless it gets renewed for a second season, and they throw in the Solarians.
I think not.
But yeah, as always, let us know your thoughts on this one. Yeah, that's all I've got. Anything else?
No, I have nothing.
Indeed. So you've been listening to the Brothers Mahoney, and you can find us on Twitter at Brothers Mahoney. And you can comment down below here on YouTube. To like and follow, subscribe. I don't care. Just do stuff, bro. It's your life. But yeah, we'll see you shortly. This has been Michael.
And I've been James.
Thanks for listening. Have yourself a pleasant night.